Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a
Rock and roll. Alright lad, how are you getting on out there? How's it going everyone? Welcome back to Talkin Guff podcast with me, your host Ruben Django Pouch. Couple of bits of pepper. Well, first of all, pardon me, how is everyone getting on out there? How are my nearly 50 obviously lunatic subscribers getting on out there? Are you enjoying the content? Pop, pop, pop. So, I watched a film called Boiling Point with Stephen Graham. I fucking love Stephen Graham. And he's a head chef in a kitchen. And I watched it and I thought, initially I thought this is fucking amazing. It's one continuous shot and I've yet to find out if it's like 1917 where it's not actually one continuous shot or if it is in fact one continuous shot. It seemed as such because even some of the acting is a bit questionable, but it's really good. I thought maybe then it dipped at the end. I went back and watched the end the next night and I thought, no, that's really good. I really liked parts of it because it was kitchen life and it was done pretty well. Some parts of it were done pretty well. There's a bit where she says soigné. They have to be soigné, mate, yeah? Soigné means good. Textbook. So that was good. Boiling Point. Has anyone else seen it? Comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think. Couple of bits of pepper here just to get us going. First one. I seen this thing. It says here that Indonesia confirms capital city to be moved away from sinking Jakarta. Approval to begin construction on what is set to be the world's newest capital city received a green light on Tuesday, as Indonesia's parliament passed a bill approving the move away from its sinking current capital, Jakarta. Apparently, because they flooded wetlands or something there. They always have floods, and because of pollution the place is going to shit, and it's actually one of the fastest sinking parts of the world. And the idea that they're just going to fucking cut 2,000 acres out of the rainforests in Borneo to put a new capital city in there is totally fucking insane, isn't it? It's a microcosm. Do you remember The Simpsons, where they just polluted the fuck out of the place and they moved the whole town down the road? That's what it's like. But like in real life, a whole capital city, it's just like, oh well, we fucked this city, we better go and destroy the ecosystem of like millions of animals, orangutans, flora and fauna, etc., so we can just sort of cast that destroyed city by the wayside and move on. Great, isn't it great to be human beings? We're scumbags. So a guy sent me this, a good friend of mine, big shout out to Noel Healy, and I will say his name because he doesn't give a fuck what I say. So, a menace to public health. This is an article in the Rolling Stone magazine. Rolling Stone. A menace to public health. Doctors demand Spotify puts an end to Joe Rogan's COVID lies. Right now, I'm not getting into, this isn't about COVID, but it's actually about a couple of things. It's just, I think you should go read that article for yourself. When I read it, I thought to myself, what a unjournalistic piece of tripe. What an obviously biased and weighted piece of absolute tripe. And there's a couple of really interesting things about this. The woman, and I mean, I just can't help but feel that there are people out there with messiah complexes and people out there with this sort of like, I know best attitude. There's a point in this article where one of the people they quote says something, and I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines of, there's not two sides to this story. There's only one side, and it's the narrative. And like, read it for yourself. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to be like penalized for misinformation, but I just thought like that was such a ridiculous concept for an adult to be communicating, that there's only one side to this story and it's the establishment narrative. I mean, that's totally ridiculous. We tell our own children that there are two sides to every story, and now as adults we're meant to just go, okay. You know, it's insane. And she also references the Robert Malone episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, which I haven't seen. And if anyone knows more about Robert Malone, let me know. He says he's the architect of the mRNA vaccines, and he has a lot to say about this, that, and the other. I don't know a whole lot about him, truth be told, and I'm not getting into it. But I thought there was an interesting thing, and I'm going to watch the podcast. See, here's another thing, is that all of this stuff just sends more people to the Joe Rogan podcast. It's the most watched anything on planet Earth consistently. Like, that's it. There's a little example as to people's disillusionment or mistrust in mainstream media, is that they're no longer the most watched. The most watched is some lad in his studio in Texas who just gets guests on and go, what's the story? So that's interesting. But apparently they touch on this idea of some sort of mass psychosis. And I'm definitely going to watch the episode in question now, because I was already thinking to myself, is there some sort of mass psychosis, some mass apathy or inability, given the choices we've made, to look at the whole picture subjectively? Like, I can't help but feel that we're going, it looks like this thing, and then we're being told it's something completely different on numerous levels, and I won't, but then I think to myself, what's this? But that's not right, because we can see right there that that's not the case, and people are just like, no, it is. Yeah, it is. And even if you sometimes say to those people, what about that facet of that situation? Does that not fly in the face of that? Well, maybe, yeah, but that's right. So for me, there is some sort of thing going on. How the fuck has that been achieved? What's does anyone out there know what I'm talking about? And has anyone else got any thoughts about it? If you do, put them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear them. The other interesting part of this article, there are two more interesting parts of it. Number one is that it's an open letter of 250 doctors, is what it says, to Spotify to put an end to Joe Rogan and his bullshit. But as it happens, apparently, those people are not doctors. There's something like only a handful of doctors, and there's psychiatrists and other things like that. And so it would seem that even that's a bit weak. You know what I mean? And what they're talking about really is the suppression of conversation. And the last sort of interesting point I'm going to take from that, and we're going to revisit an old podcast, potentially in the next podcast. We did one before called the death of, like, left versus right, the death of conversation, I think it was called. And we were talking about how there was no sort of healthy discourse between the left and the right, and therefore by default nothing really gets achieved. And I still think a year later, coming up on a year later, that's accurate. That's the truth. But one thing I have noticed, and again we'll touch on this in the podcast I'm thinking about doing, like that I've just talked about to you, this like, it seems like the left and the right have become the left have definitely become right wing. They might say they have left leaning ideals or ideologues, but the reality of it is they're right wing. They're fucking lunatics. And if you look at that article I'm talking about, it's the most un-rock and roll thing you've ever read. Consider, like, they're talking about mandated medicines and suppression of conversation and lockdowns and restrictions and all, like, as if they're liberal. That's a liberal agenda somehow now. What happened there? How did that happen? And there's loads of funny stories like that, and we're definitely going to do that with a podcast, I was just saying. Woo-wee. Right, let's get into it. I saw an article, and it had another link to another article within it, and I read those articles and I thought to myself, fucking hell. And so we're going to have a look at those articles now, and I've actually printed them out. I'm trying to be a bit more professional about it, so I'm not just looking on my phone. So, meet Ireland's 3 biggest landlords. They own almost half the institutional market, and their cheapest one bed is more than €1,500 a month. Quote unquote, I want to conclude by again paying tribute to the heroes of the COVID-19 pandemic, end quote, said Finance Minister Paschal Donoghue in October as he introduced Budget 2022 to the Dáil. Now, that for me, again, that is such an obvious, that's political capital, because what he's doing there is he's trying to generate political capital by shouting out to the, like, they don't give a fuck about anyone except themselves. And so that is lip service, and he only pays that lip service in the hope of receiving political capital. Donoghue, a defender of large private landlords who has plans to court increased institutional investment in the Irish housing market, and we'll get onto that, may consider these people heroes. But properties owned by Ireland's biggest landlords are well beyond their means. This is a beautiful little comparison they made here. In fact, a single person looking to rent the cheapest institutional-owned flat in Donoghue's own constituency would need to earn €4,595 a month after tax to comfortably afford it at 1/3 of their salary. Like, can you get your head around that? A one-bedroom apartment, you would need to earn after tax €4,593 a month just for you to be able to afford that comfortably. After tax. Crazy. Iris Wright, Kennedy Wilson and Urbio between them control 49% of rental properties owned by institutional landlords in Ireland. The most affordable property they offer, according to the most recent listings on Daft, is a one bed in Dublin 3 for €1,530 a month. The most expensive, get this, the most expensive is a two bed in Dublin's Grand Canal Dock for €15,000 a month. Like, you know, that is just such a disgusting, surreal situation that any property would be 15 for two bed. Any two bed property in the city would be €15,000 a month. Give me a fucking break. That is just obvious. It's evidence to the fact that the situation is totally out of control, cannot sustain itself, is not viable, and doesn't accommodate the working classes in any way whatsoever. The cheapest one-bed apartment offered by any of these three institutional landlords costs 61% of a newly qualified teacher's monthly salary, while their most expensive one-bed costs 82% of the same salary. So you're a teacher, you get the cheapest in the city centre, say for instance, and you need the cheapest one-bed apartment, it's going to cost 60% or just over 60% of your wages. So you have to live on 40% of your wages for everything. Like, it's just insane. Irish Residential Properties, REIT PLC, and their slogan is better living made simple. Yeah, it's really simple. You better have loads of fucking money or you're done. We don't have a house for you. Fuck off. Oh, like, even just here at a glance, 1,457.5 million value of the portfolio, 3,836 units, number of properties owned. Like, it's disgusting. Like, it's totally disgusting. And so, claiming the title of Ireland's largest private landlord in a presentation to investors in September 2021, Iris Wright acknowledged it operates a highly attractive market characterised by a significant demand-supply imbalance. Iris Wright owns, just think about that for a minute. Iris Wright owns 36 Dublin complexes comprising 3,836 units, a 45% increase in units they claim in the last 3 years. Like, that's been going on while people have been losing their businesses and being locked up in their homes. These scumbags are acquiring 45% more homes in the middle of a housing crisis, and they want to rent them to you for the minimum €1,500 per room per month. So, their cheapest available property is a one bed in Dublin 3's Richmond Garden complex, which they claim without providing pictures is stunning. No pictures. Their available two bed apartments meanwhile cost $2,045 to $2,800 a month and are set in complexes in Dublin 2 and 4, Tallaght, Sandyford and Castleknock. So you have to pay nearly €3,000 a month for a two bed apartment to live in Tallaght, Sandyford or Castleknock. Hell on earth. With a market cap of 850 million, Iris Wright in November 2020 appealed a negative ruling of €638.54 against it at a residential tenancies board. A tribunal convened by the RTB, however, upheld this ruling, adjudging Iris Wright to have overcharged its tenants. They had to pay €638.54 and they tried to appeal it. Market imbalance. This is where I get upset now. Market imbalance creates opportunity for one of the world's biggest property firms. Global residential and commercial property firm Kennedy Wilson relies on the Irish market for 19% of its before-tax income of $413 million. 7 of Kennedy Wilson's 20 most profitable assets are located in Ireland, and in the firm's 2021 third quarter presentation to investors, it said that a market imbalance creates opportunity in the Irish residential market. Kennedy Wilson's 5th most profitable property worldwide is at Clancy's Quay apartment complex in Dublin 8. The complex's cheapest one bed is available to rent for €2,050 a month, 92% of a newly qualified nurse's after-tax monthly salary, while its most expensive 2-bed stretches to €2,050 a month. The company isn't offering a 3-bed apartment for less than €3,500 a month, and its most expensive letting is a €15,000 a month 2-bed in Dublin's Grand Canal Dock. Hold on now. So a couple of things to touch on. Highly attractive market. Significant demand-supply imbalance. Market imbalance creates opportunity. These motherfuckers who are in the midst of a housing crisis being allowed to buy in the last year €1 billion worth of homes off plan before you even had a fucking chance. These motherfuckers are laughing at us. They're talking about this is an investment opportunity. This is great. This imbalance, this fucking housing crisis that has, I think, 10,000 people living either homeless or in temporary accommodation. That's great. It's a great opportunity. That is I want to get them lads by the fucking neck and punch the head off them. That's how I feel about that. And our own government is complicit in this situation. And we're going to get onto that now in a second. But I'm sorry, but I just find that to be enraging. That's how it's viewed by these sociopathic billionaires, millionaires. Just like, oh, that's great. That's a great little situation there. We're going to go in there and fucking exploit the fuck out of that situation and make bank. Make a mint. While we're suffering in our thousands. People like me and, other young professionals can't afford to buy a house in this country. It's been fucking bought by these cunts. There's thousands and thousands of people living on the streets. There's thousands of kids growing up in hotel rooms and shit like that. With no electricity. What the actual fuck? This is what's going on. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact. Just to go on then. Led by former Hibernia Wright and NAMA executives and backed by US private equity group Starwood Capital, Urbio is aiming to establish a €1 billion portfolio of build-to-rent properties. It currently has 1, 2 and 3-bed apartments to rent in Dublin 4, 15 and 24, as well as Finglas and Maynooth. Urbio's cheapest 1-bed is in its U Charleston complex in Finglas and is offered at €1,650 a month for 1 bedroom in Finglas, or 90% of a little cashier's monthly salary. 90%. Their cheapest 2-bed property, meanwhile, is a house in Maynooth, which is being offered for €1,900 a month. A Dublin 24 3-bed located minutes from Tala Hospital will cost prospective tenants €2,550 a month. These lads want a €1 billion portfolio. That's all it is to these people. It's money. It's a portfolio that generates money. And on the other side of it, on the underbelly, is the suffering of normal, everyday working class people. And, does that ring true with anyone? Can we see that happening around the world in other circumstances? I found that, man, when I read that, my mind was blown. I was really shocked. And I know I've talked about the housing thing before, and I've said how I feel that obviously the government should not allow this to happen. They should just go, look, lads, you've had your fun. Compulsory purchase orders akimbo, and you're out. Go on, fuck off. Do a fucking Muammar Gaddafi on it. There was a link in this right at the start because it said Pascal Donaghy wanted to fucking court increased institutional investment in the Irish housing market. And this is what they're talking about. And this is really shocking as well. Government's residential investor roadshows to go ahead with ministers advised to attend. The Department of Finance has said that investor roadshows, which are targeted at financial institutions and funds, will go ahead. As reported in the Irish Times, it is intended that the roadshows will attract sustainable investment in residential accommodation. There's loads of people who want to invest in residential accommodation locally. They're fucking crying out to buy houses in this country. We don't need that. The Department of Finance has said the proposed events, which were first reported in the Irish Daily Mail, were envisaged as part of moves to encourage investment in home building under the Housing for All plan. Even that is so oxymoronical, isn't it? Because it's just like the Housing for All plan, but not for all the people who need houses. You know, and somehow some investment out, like exterior investment that just wants to drive up the price of the rental market is going to be housing for all. Somehow we're all going to get housed out of that situation. It's not working. There's thousands of people homeless. According to the Housing for All plan, like, how could they even have the balls to say that, considering the situation? The Department of Finance should lead communication and engagement with institutional investors, including trade show events, to communicate policies and encourage sustainable investment in residential accommodation. Again, I'm pretty sure there's loads of sustainable investment. You know, people want to fucking buy houses. An event has not yet taken place, but it is envisaged to take place in line with the commitment set out in Housing for All, said a spokesperson. It is expected that an event will take place in 2022. Furthermore, officials in the department have suggested that Minister for Finance Paschal Donohoe and the Minister for Housing Darragh O'Brien should attend an event for institutional investors aimed at reassuring those who may have been alarmed by moves to limit bulk buying of housing estates. It's just totally insane. Like, they're feeding into this situation. In fact, they're going to put on roadshows. Come over here and fucking exploit us. We love it. The proposed events have been heavily criticised by opposition parties such as Sinn Féin. The party's housing spokesperson Owen O'Brien called on the Minister for Housing to reveal details of the roadshow. So this is Owen O'Brien talking here. The public was rightly angered when large institutional investors availing of enormous tax breaks were outbidding working people for new homes. Darragh O'Brien and Paschal Donohoe promised to take action and clip the wings of these funds, said Mr. O'Brien. Now it has been revealed that both ministers intend to go on a roadshow to reassure these very same investors that Ireland is open for business. Minister O'Brien must reveal the details of this roadshow. Who do they intend to meet? What new sweetheart deals are they promising behind closed doors to attract these funds to Ireland? Owen O'Brien added. Crucially, Minister O'Brien must explain how more of this kind of investment will deliver good quality affordable homes. That's it right there. So let's just go through a couple of bits of that. Exactly, Owen O'Brien. How exactly will Minister O'Brien explain how more of this kind of investment will deliver good quality affordable homes? It hasn't worked so far. So how will just going down the same path, how will selling the sovereignty of your electorate help the situation anymore when it hasn't helped up until this point? And again, it's all about the political capital. They're going, yeah, of course we're going to take action. Of course we're going to clip the wings of these funds. But the reality of it is they're going to set up junkets or fucking roadshows and massage these investors back into exploiting us, taking our homes. Like, you shouldn't stand for that. Where do people live? I live with my mum. I can't afford I can't afford to buy a home. You know, I got child maintenance, I got to help here, I got all my shit that I do. And so, realistically, I can't even afford to rent a one-bedroom house in this country, in this town. Where does everyone else live? What's everyone else's living situation, and what's it like? How tough is it? And what do you think about that? What do you think about that stuff? It's mental, isn't it? I think what you should do next, or, you know, if you think that that's not right, if you think that that's uncool, why don't you, I'm definitely going to do this myself, I am going to next time vote for Sinn Féin. I did the last time, and I will vote every time for Sinn Féin until they get to form a government, because I really think that the likes of Owen O'Brien and Pierce Doherty won't throw the normal working class people under the bus the way in which Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil do. Just think about that, maybe. I don't know. It's up to you. I don't want to be whatever, but I think them cunts have to go. And I'm not really going to go through this. I'm pretty much maybe even just going to read the first couple of bits of it and just think, oh my God. So, Ireland's 9 billionaires increased their wealth by 58% since the start of the pandemic, according to analysis by Oxfam. You know? The wheel just kept turning for them pieces of shit. In fact, it went faster and faster and generated more and more money. As reported in the Irish Examiner, Irish billionaires' wealth grew to 49.7 billion, while the economy faced difficulties due to the impact of COVID-19. The data from Oxfam was published in a report called Inequality Kills, with information from the Forbes Real-Time Billionaires 2022 list and data provided by WealthX. During the first 2 years of the pandemic, the world's 10 richest men more than doubled their wealth from 610 billion to 1.3 trillion. Meanwhile, the incomes of 99% of the world's population have either stagnated or fallen, with over 160 million more people being forced into poverty, while billionaires here and around the world increased their wealth astronomically, exponentially. According to Oxfam, a 1.5% wealth tax on Irish millionaires owning above 4 million could raise 4 billion in tax revenue, while a 1.5, Jesus Christ, man, listen to that again. A 1.5% wealth tax on Irish millionaires owning above 4 million could raise 4 billion in tax revenue, while a 1.5% wealth tax on Irish billionaires alone could raise a little over 0.7 billion. 1.5%, man. Could, what? Commenting on the report, Oxfam Ireland CEO Jim Clarkin said billionaires have had a terrific pandemic. Central banks pumped trillions of euros into financial markets to save the economy, yet much of that has ended up lining the pockets of billionaires riding a stock market boom, he said. Or like quantitative easing. And I said this before, that we were doing a global fucking quantitative easing session and that it wouldn't trickle down. That actually it would just go left and right and end up in the pockets of the wealthiest people on planet Earth. Ireland could lead by example by introducing a wealth tax of 1.5% on the very wealthiest, which would have a positive effect on Ireland's society as it recovers from the pandemic. Listen, Mr. Clarkin suggested the funding could be used for housing or health or for supporting a just transition to a zero carbon society. Shut up, man. You're making too much sense there, you dope. The world's gone fucking bonkers, man. The world's gone bonkers. And that's that. I love yous. I enjoyed that one, actually. I hope you enjoyed it. I love yous to bits. I'm back on the mushrooms and doing one a day for 14 days, and I'm pretty sure I feel great. So, whatever you need to do to keep your shit shitty, just go ahead and do it. Mwah!
Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faith